Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to the Sommpour Deep Cut. When people begin with the WSET Diploma, D1 feels like the calm before the storm, a foundation unit, a technical warm up, something to get through before the real work of D3, D4, and D5 begins. But year after year, examiner reports say the same thing. Most students pass D1, but very few rise above the pass line. Not because they don't know the material, but because they don't write what the exam actually asks for. And that's what this episode is about. Not wine physiology, not fermentation pathways, not enrichment or clarification. You already have the textbook in front of you. This episode is about how to write D1 answers that earn marks. It's the Sommpour playbook for a unit that looks simple on the surface but reveals every weakness in exam craft. D1 questions aren't essays, they're short form written responses. But short does not mean easy, and short does not mean vague. It means precision, relevance, and discipline. Let's start with the line that appears in some form in every examiner report. Candidates are failing to answer the question as set. And when you look more closely, the problem becomes obvious. Students write too much for the smallest questions. They write too little for the ones worth 50%. They produce long introductions that add nothing. They describe processes when they're supposed to explain them. Or they try to show everything they've memorized, hoping the examiner will piece it together. But D1 doesn't reward volume, it rewards clarity. And clarity begins with the command verb. In D1, you will spend much of your time distinguishing describe from explain, because these two verbs define most of the unit's questions. Describe in D1 is simple recall. You can state what happens, you can list steps or conditions. There's no need for interpretation. But explain requires the how and the why. That single shift from describing a process to explaining its mechanism is the difference between a basic pass and a higher grade. Examiners say it plainly. The quality of explanation is what differentiates strong candidates. Once you understand the command verb, the next discipline is time. The D1 exam is 90 minutes. If a question is worth 10%, it is a 9-minute question, planning included. That means a short paragraph, not a page. If a question is worth 50%, you cannot answer it in half a page. You need depth, breadth, examples. You need 2 or 3 full sides of writing, shaped by structure, not panic. Every year, the reports say the same thing. Candidates ignore weightings, and their scripts collapse under the imbalance. Small questions balloon into essays. Big questions are left hollow. And because the examiner cannot award more marks than the weighting allows, every extra sentence in a minor question is a sentence taken away from the one that matters. So D1 requires something that sounds simple but is rarely practiced. Allocate your time before your pen touches the page. Then we come to scope, the invisible trap. D1 covers all aspects of wine production: viticulture, harvest, fermentation, post fermentation adjustments, maturation, stabilization, packaging. It's a vast field, and the temptation to drift is constant. But the exam questions are narrow. If the question is about tartrate stability, you do not earn marks by writing about oxidation or reverse osmosis. This has happened so often that in one recent paper, examiners noted that many candidates scored a fail not because they didn't know the tartrate processes, but because they answered a question that wasn't asked. The same happened with carbonic maceration. Candidates wrote about semi-carbonic when the question clearly specified the full process. No marks for things the examiner did not ask. The D1 textbook is comprehensive, but the exam expects your writing to be selective, not minimal, selective, not broad, targeted. And underpinning all of this is technical accuracy. D1 is the most technical diploma unit, and when examiners say that, they don't mean difficult. They mean the unit requires command of vocabulary. Candidates who confuse enrichment with chaptalization, or RCGM with must concentration, or SO2 with CO2 are revealing something deeper, not a lack of knowledge, but a lack of precision. And precision is everything in D1. If the question is about the effect of sunlight on black grapes, the examiner expects anthocyanins and tannins, not a general discussion about ripening. If the question is about canopy components, the examiner expects buds, shoots, tendrils, leaves, and their correct functions. A bud is not a flower. Tendrils do not photosynthesize. These sound like small mistakes, but in a unit built on fundamentals, they are costly. One of the most consistent themes across D1 reports is this: students know more than they can express cleanly. So let's talk about expression. Strong D1 answers have no unnecessary introductions. This isn't an essay. You do not need to set a scene or narrate context. You begin at the point the question begins. You write in short, direct sentences. You use the vocabulary of the textbook, not vague paraphrases. You stay inside the scope, and you keep your writing functional. A strong D1 answer shows the examiner that you understand the process itself, not just the words associated with it. If the question asks you to explain carbonic maceration, you don't just say it produces fruity wines with low tannin. You explain why. You describe the intracellular environment. You mention the anaerobic breakdown of malic acid. You show that you understand the mechanism, not just the outcomes. And when the question includes the word red, you don't answer about white. This too has happened repeatedly, students giving broad answers when the question asked for specificity. Ultimately, the D1 exam is not testing how much of the textbook you've memorized. It's testing whether you can apply technical understanding to a clearly defined task within a limited amount of time with discipline. The candidates who rise above pass do not write more, they write appropriately. They match depth to weighting. They use the right terminology. They explain rather than describe when the verb demands it. They avoid long openings and long conclusions. They show mastery of fundamentals by refusing to drift into irrelevant content. D1 rewards clarity, clarity rewards planning. And planning rewards the candidate who treats the paper as a series of targeted responses, not as an opportunity to recite everything they studied. I hope you enjoyed listening. This is the D1 Theory Playbook from the Sommpour, and I'll see you on the next Deep Cut.